is like the 10th time I've tried to record this, but I think I got it all figured out. So we should be able to get through this, but this is like the third time I've been through this. So if I seem to be going a little faster than I probably should go, that's the reason why. Today we're talking about psychedelics, all-arounders, the famous all-arounders. That's what we're going to talk about today. Primarily, we're going to deal with LSD and marijuana, but there are some other hallucinogens out there that like peyote and PCP and STP, and there's just a bunch of them. But that's what we're going to deal with today. So let's go ahead and get started since I've already done this multiple times. These are the famous psychedelics, the all-arounders. Psychedelics alter a user's perceptions whereby reason becomes unimportant, and intensified sensations create illusions, delusions, and hallucinations. Psychedelic fungi and plants have been used by humans since Neanderthal times. Amanita mushrooms have been used in India for 4,000 years. Belladonna has been used since ancient Greece. Marijuana was snorted in ancient China. LSD in the form of rye fungus ergot was consumed in Renaissance Europe to the death of tens of thousands of people. Psychedelics are readily used today in several forms and have waxed and waned in their popularity over the years. MDMA, 2.3% of high school seniors used it in 2000. By 2003, MDMA was down to 1.3%. LSD, 4% of high school seniors used it in 1995. By 2006, only 0.6% had used it. Marijuana, 37.4% of high school seniors used it in 1979. That's the high point. By 1992, it was down to 11.9%. By 1999, it had risen to 23.9%. By 2006, the percentage had gone down to 18.3%. Now, with all the legalization of marijuana, it's at somewhere around 35%. So it's still lower than it was in 1979, when it was cool to smoke pot, man. Marijuana is used the most among whites. Marijuana is used the least among blacks. Hispanics use it somewhere in between those two other groups. Psychedelics come in 5 chemical configurations: indoles, phenolcalamines, anticholinergics, cannabinoids, and then those that are classed by themselves. Indoles include LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, phenolcalamines, peyote and MDMA, anticholinergics, belladonna and datura, cannabinoids, marijuana, and then ketamine, PCP, salvia divinorum, and dextromethorphan are classed unto themselves. Dextromethorphan is the ingredient for cough syrup. The effects of psychedelics is determined by the toxicity of the substance, the amount used, the user's experience with the drugs, the emotional makeup of the user, the mood and the mental state at the time of the use, the pre-existing mental illnesses, the surrounding in which the drug is taken. Most hallucinogens stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, which results in a rise in pulse and blood pressure, sweating, palpitations, and nausea. Psychedelics interfere with select neurotransmitters: dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, anandamide, glutamate, alpha-cytosine, but especially serotonin. And that's what gives it its main effect. Psychedelics greatly affect mood because serotonin is amply represented in the limbic system. Stimulation in the reticular formation in the brainstem tends to overload the sensory pathways, making the user acutely aware of all sensations. Overstimulation of the visual and auditory centers may cause auditory stimulation to jump to the visual pathway so that music might be seen and sights such as colors may be heard. This crossover of sensations is referred to as synesthesia. Some people are naturally synesthetic. Billie Eilish, for example, can taste and smell music. An illusion is a mistaken perception of an external stimuli. LSD and most psychedelics cause illusions. A delusion is a mistaken idea or belief that cannot be swayed by reason or other contradictory evidence. LSD and most psychedelics cause delusions. A hallucination is a sensory experience that does not come from external stimuli, but is perceived as coming from an external stimuli. Mescaline, psilocybin, and PCP cause hallucinations. LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, ibogaine, morning glory seeds, dimethyltryptamine, foxy, AMT, ayahuasca are the indole psychedelics. These substances create mental interaction by inhabiting the serotonin receptor sites, especially the 5-HT2A sites. 5-HTA is the chemical symbol for serotonin. This affects your sleep, your mood, your anxiety level. It can form hallucinations and illusions by inhabiting that site. LSD, lysergic acid diethylmide, also known as sacrament, acid blotter, barrels, orange sunshine, illusions, and window panes. Window panes is when you mix LSD with strychnine to get it into your system faster. LSD is a semi-synthetic chemical compound found in the ergot fungus found in some cereal grains, but especially rye. This substance was first isolated from the ergot fungus in 1938 and synthesized. LSD failed as a psychological enhancement substance in psychotherapy and as a treatment for alcoholism. Famously, Cary Grant was severely depressed and was drinking a lot of alcohol, used LSD, and claimed that it saved his life. It was purchased by the CIA. This was in right after World War II. It was experimented with for its use as a truth drug or a mind control drug in a program referred to as MK Ultra. It failed miserably. One of the CIA's researchers was Harvard professor Timothy Leary. Leary discovered its psychedelic properties by accident and then experimented on purpose. It was Leary who gave LSD to the rest of the world. LSD was made illegal in 1966. LSD is fairly simple to make. And once they gave it to Leary and Leary used it, he decided that everybody needed to have it. LSD is easily manufactured, though it has mostly come from the San Francisco Bay Area of Northern California. It takes a very small amount of LSD to produce a reaction. The entire U.S. uses less than 11 pounds of LSD a year. The chemical is usually dissolved in alcohol and placed on blotter paper for consumption. 10 to 50 micrograms, which is a very minuscule amount, is the usual dosage on the blotter paper. The popularity of LSD has waxed and waned. It was popular in the 1960s and 1970s as hippie drugs to get in touch. The drug became less popular in the 1980s, but made a comeback as a rave drug or supplement to ecstasy in the 1990s. A drug raid in Kansas virtually took the drug off the street and made it too expensive for ravers to afford, and this was back in the 1990s. Its popularity today is with the same rave crowd for people who want to experience a high. LSD is used in such small amounts that it is not normally detected by standard drug testing. You have to order it in order to for laboratory techs to look for it. LSD is remarkably potent, creating a reaction with 1/millionth of a gram. Spaciness, it causes spaciness, decreased perception of time, mild euphoria. Its effects appear about 15 to 60 minutes after ingestion. The effects peak at 2 to 4 hours. The effects last 6 to 8 hours. User returns to their normal state after 10 to 12 hours. Withdrawal from LSD is more a mental state than a physical dependence. They may experience a downer. A downer is when you are depressed, when you start tripping, start taking your LSD, and then you have a negative reaction. So instead of having a happy trip, you have a downer, a bad trip. Some things will not kill you. Marijuana, LSD, psilocybin are three drugs that very rarely people die from. I tried to look this up. There are deaths from LSD, but not from marijuana and not from psilocybin. But then you start hitting nitrous oxide. People do die from this stuff because they use it too much. Heroin, you can overdose on heroin. Strangely, you can overdose on nutmeg and datura. GHB, that's the date rape drug, dextromethorphan, if you drink too much of it, and people do that just to get the high from it. And you can see that some of these are really dangerous drugs and cause a lot of deaths, or potentially can. LSD effects include rise in blood pressure and heart rate, a rise in body temperature, dizziness, dilated pupils, and sweating. After image light trails, known as the trailing phenomena, sensory distortions, you see sounds, feel smells, and hear colors. Dreaminess, depersonalization, altered mood, impaired concentration, and motivation. If you've never been around somebody on LSD, they are pretty spacey. We used to get them in the emergency room all the time. And it's difficult to tell what their problem is. You think that maybe they're having a psychotic episode, but there's no, as long as they're on a good trip, you're okay. And the biggest problem is that all of their blood pressure is too high. They're sweating like crazy, and they're just acting abnormally, and usually that's why people bring them in. And if we know that they're on LSD, of course, then we just wait for it to go away. LSD activates the locus coeruleus, which causes the release of extra amounts of norepinephrine. The extra norepinephrine enhances alertness, causing the illusion of heightened awareness and introspection. LSD trippers often will lose their ability to express themselves verbally. The greatest danger is the impaired reasoning that the individual displays and loss of judgment, and sometimes they will commit suicide. They will kill themselves by mistake. They think they can fly, so they jump off buildings and things like that. The user can suffer acute anxiety reactions to the LSD, known as a bad trip. This is especially common for new users who aren't aware of the intensity of the euphoria or the possibility of panic that can be induced by the drug. A feeling of depersonalization, you don't feel like yourself. Acute anxiety, paranoia, fear of loss of control, delusions of persecution, feelings of grandeur. A lot of times when they feel like they're being, that everybody's against them, they'll start attacking people. It gets really strange. Suicide by mistake is not uncommon, as I said. Sometimes they think they can fly, so they jump off the top of buildings. LSD can be dangerous for people with pre-existing mental conditions or mental instability, and this is the biggest problem. Any of the hallucinogens can kick you into psychosis fairly quickly, and LSD is not is one of the, and even marijuana. Marijuana can trip you into a psychotic episode if you're not careful. Some people should just not try this stuff. Using LSD can aggravate the already existing conditions, leading to more severe mental disturbances. Somebody that is already known to be overly anxious, to be overly depressed, to have psychotic episodes, to be extremely neurotic should never take this stuff because it could kick them into psychosis. Use of LSD has also led to experiencing their mental illness at a younger age. LSD can lead to relapse for an individual recovering from a psychotic episode or major depression. Individuals without mental illnesses might be thrown into a temporary but prolonged psychotic reactions or severe depression that requires treatment. Some individuals have been known to experience prolonged trips that can be emotionally crippling and last for years. Hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, HPPD, is re-experiencing mental flashbacks of sensations from a previous trip, and usually the sensations are from a bad trip, not from a good trip. It is usually from there we go. It's from a bad trip. HPPD can occur months or even years after the last use of LSD. The flashbacks recreate the original experience and can be triggered by stress, use of another psychoactive substance, or exercise. HPPD seems to have a strong hereditary component and results in anxiety and panic. Some people suffer from long-term intermittent or continuous HPPD, where their flashbacks occur on a chronic basis. This type of HPPD may resolve itself in 5 years or persist indefinitely, resulting in difficulty reading, memory problems, color confusion, halos around objects, especially humans, visual afterimages, these are known as trails, intensified colors, macropsia, macropsia or micropsia. It's where everything appears either abnormally large or abnormally small. Illusions of movement, geometric pseudo hallucinations, flashes of color, imagined images, floaters in your eye. HPPD can be caused by other psychedelics besides LSD, though it is most common with LSD. MDMA, MDA, mescaline, DMT, PCP, marijuana, and psilocybin can also cause HPPD. Flashbacks occur in from 23 to 64% of regular LSD users. Zoloft, clonidine, and naltrexone have been used to treat HPPD successfully. LSD does not produce compulsive drug-seeking behavior, thus it is not considered addictive. Tolerance develops rapidly, and some users have reported as many as 500 trips in their lifetime. The dependence is probably psychological instead of physical. Is it harmless is a good question. Syd Barrett, one of the founding members of Pink Floyd, was known for his heavy use of LSD. He withdrew from the music industry in the 1970s, right after Pink Floyd hit it big. This is him just before he died. This is him as a rocker. This is him as somebody suffering from schizophrenia. Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac, he was one of the founding members of Fleetwood Mac, suffered a mental decline from a trip gone wrong in 1971 and left the band. He has since died, but he kicked him into schizophrenia, and he was in and out of mental hospitals for the rest of his life. Rocky Erickson of 13th Floor Elevators suffered a psychotic episode in 1968 that led to hospitalization for paranoid schizophrenia after extensive marijuana and LSD use. He spent the rest of his life in and out of mental hospitals. This is him. He has since died as well. This is him as a young rocker. This is him later on, before he died. Skip Spence of Jefferson Airplane, and then one of the founding members of Moby Grape. In 1968, Spence suffered a psychotic episode while on LSD and attacked a fellow band member with an axe. He was hospitalized for 6 months with schizophrenia. He died homeless at age 52. This is him as a rocker, and this is him homeless just before he died. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys first took LSD in 1965 and quickly began using it as an inspirational tool. Using marijuana and LSD regularly, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia soon after his first use of the drug. He died just only a year ago or so. But he never toured again after his psychotic episode. Vince Taylor took LSD for the first time at a London party in May 1965. He quickly fell into a cycle of severe, long-term acid abuse, often combining it with alcohol and amphetamines. Way to go, Vince. Following his use of LSD, Taylor developed a severe psychotic break, declaring himself Mattias, the new Jesus. And he has died as well. Craig Smith, also known as Maitreya Kali, was one of the founding members of Penny Arcade. Smith began using LSD in 1968. During his travels, Smith took LSD on a regular basis and he smoked copious amounts of hashish. Hitchhiking around the world, he was incarcerated in a mental hospital in Afghanistan with schizophrenia for a number of years, and he eventually died. This is a tattoo of a spider in the middle of his forehead. As cute as that is. There are 75 different varieties of mushrooms that contain the active ingredients psilocybin and psilocin. They grow in Mexico, the United States, South America, Southeast Asia, and Europe, and have been used since before recorded history. They were especially important to the Aztec and Toltec religions in Mexico and Central America. These substances are still being used among Mazatec, Cole, Lacandan, Mayan shamans. When we were in Guatemala, I took a Fulbright trip to Peru and Guatemala. The shamans, the Mayan shamans, inhabit the churches on Thursdays. They close down the Catholic churches and they allow the shamans to come. And usually they keep them out on the steps, but sometimes they'll come in and they'll do their whatever their thing is. And they use the mushrooms. When we were down there, there was one of our number. There were about 15 of us, and one of the individuals wanted to go to a shaman presentation, but we talked her out of it. We were afraid. We knew what she wanted to do. She wanted to take some magic mushrooms, but we talked her out of it. The chemical structure of psilocybin is very similar to LSD. However, mushrooms vary widely in strength, and some having as much as 10 times the level of psilocybin as weak ones. Fresh mushrooms are more potent than dried ones. Psilocybin is broken down into psilocin in the stomach. Psilocybin is twice as potent as psilocin and crosses the brain-blood barrier more readily. Psychic effects begin at dosages of 30 to 60 milligrams. The effects last for 3 to 6 hours, and the effects are nausea and other physical responses before the psychedelic effects that begin, altered states of consciousness, changes in sight, hearing, taste, and touch, visceral effects, less dissociation and panic than LSD, and the visceral effects usually have to do with excessive gas. Many of the psychedelic effects are caused by the disruption of neurotransmitters dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine oversensitizes the senses. Some of the people try to harvest their own magic mushrooms, but the similarity between mushrooms that contain psilocybin and those that are poisonous make picking them way too dangerous. There's thousands and thousands of types of mushrooms. Only 75 are magic. Ibogaine comes from the African shrub Tabernanthe iboga. At low doses, the substance acts as a stimulant. At higher doses, the substance produces a long-acting psychedelic-like catatonic reaction that can last up to 2 days. Ibogaine is used by the Bwiti tribe of Gabon to remain motionless while hunting. These hunters also claim to have ancestral visions while under the drug's spell. This drug has been considered as a treatment for heroin, alcohol, cocaine addiction, as it reduces withdrawal symptoms. However, neurotoxicity has been observed with its use in this capacity, and therefore it is not considered a pharmaceutical. Morning glory seeds, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that, contains lysergic acid amide, which can be used to make lysergic acid diethylmide. Lysergic acid amide has 1/10 the potency of LSD. It requires several hundred morning glory seeds to get an effect, and this usually causes a great deal of nausea. To exacerbate this effect, the seeds that are sold commercially are dipped in a toxin that induces vomiting. The effects of morning glory seeds include sensory disturbances and mood changes, nausea and vomiting, drowsiness, headache, and chills. Dimethyltryptamine, or also known as DMT, was first synthesized in 1931 and is found in several South American trees, vines, shrubs, and mushrooms. The psychedelic substance in DMT is similar in structure to psilocin and is usually smoked, snorted, or injected, as it is deactivated by stomach acids and causes visual hallucinations, loss of awareness of the individual's surroundings. The high lasts for 10 to 60 minutes. A similar response comes from the venom of the Sonoran desert toad. And you see people walking around licking toads in the Sonoran desert. You think I'm kidding. Foxy and AMT, I'm not going to try to pronounce those, are two psychedelic tryptamines. These drugs aren't very popular, but have been found at raves in Arizona, California, Florida, and New York, where people are the coolest. The effects of the tryptamines are similar to other rave drugs: euphoria, empathy, visual and auditory disturbances, formication, where it feels like you've got bugs crawling all over your skin, paranoia, emotional distress, nausea and vomiting, and diarrhea. Comes from both ends. The effects from small doses will last 3 to 6 hours, and heavier doses for 12 to 24 hours. Ayahuasca, or yage, is a psychedelic drink made from the bark, leaves, and vines of the Banisteriopsis species of the Amazon jungle. This drink causes intense vomiting and diarrhea before it deposits the drinker in a dreamlike state for 10 hours. Select tribes of natives in Peru, Brazil, and Ecuador use the drug for divination, prophecy, sorcery, and medicinal purposes. Cults have sprung up in Brazil around the use of this substance. The active ingredient is indole alkaloid harmaline. Ayahuasca. This group of psychedelics, the phenylalkylamines, are related to adrenaline and amphetamines, though their effects tend to last longer. The best known phenylalkylamine psychedelic is peyote, or mescaline. Mescaline is the active ingredient in the peyote cactus and the San Pedro cactus. The use of these cacti for religious insight and rituals dates back 4,000 to 5,000 years among the native tribes of Mexico, Central, and South America. In North America, 50 tribal groups were still using the drug for religious purposes into the 20th century. In 1996, the Supreme Court ruled the peyote usage by Native American Church of North America was protected by the Constitution. Mescaline is found in the small gray-green crowns of the peyote cacti. They can be used dried or fresh. The buttons can either be eaten or boiled in a tea. The mescaline is bitter and nauseating and may take as many as 7 to 8 buttons to elicit a response. The effects last up to 12 hours and results in colorful visions and hallucinations. There you go. MDA and MDMA, ecstasy, the rave drugs, were first synthesized in 1910. These drugs have a similar chemical structure to mescaline. These drugs produce the effects, feelings of well-being, euphoria, and psychedelic stimulatory effects. MDA was popular as the love drug in the 1960s and 1970s, as it was supposed to increase an individual's libido. It was later found to destroy serotonin-producing neurons in the brain, along with a few overdose deaths made it less popular. MDMA, or ecstasy, was developed to produce the same effects as MDA, but the fewer side effects. MDMA lasts for 4 to 6 hours compared to 10 to 12 hours for MDA. It is popular as a rave drug as it is reputed to make the individual dance and interact with other people at a party. The drug was tested for its psychological impact by the U.S. Army in the 1950s, but instead was touted as a drug that would help therapists tap into the emotions and memories of repressed patients. It was used in this capacity in the late 70s and early 80s. The drug was found to create empathy in the user. Street vendors changed the emotion empathy to ecstasy to improve sales. People taking MDMA experience intensified senses of smell, which makes the use of strong-smelling substances like Vicks inhalers and Tiger Balm popular at raves. Glow sticks are waved in front of ecstasy users to create a mesmerizing effect. MDMA tablets cost pirate manufacturers from 50 cents to $2 to make, but sell for as much as $10 to $70 depending on the market. DEA reports that 30 to 50% of MDMA sold isn't MDMA at all. So going to raves and thinking that you're taking MDMA is potentially incorrect. Okay. The biggest problem with MDMA is that you get really hot. You sweat excessively, and you lose a lot of fluid. So if you go to a rave, a lot of times the rave has to be either in the wintertime, outside, or it has to be in a highly air-conditioned warehouse. That's the only place they can hold them. Otherwise, the people sweat themselves to death. Really. The effects of MDMA are similar to amphetamines that begin to appear about 30 minutes after ingestion. Increased heart rate and respiration, excess energies, fainting, sweating. You get chills because you're sweating, hyperactivity, tightening of muscles, especially jaw muscles, and clenching of the teeth. Baby pacifiers and lollipops are often used to prevent tooth damage. So if you see somebody, some adult with a pacifier hanging from a chain on around their necks, that's the reason they do it. Whether they're actually using MDMA or not doesn't really matter. It's so cool to do it. Infrequent use leads to heightened responses. Heavier use leads to rapid tolerance. Overuse of MDMA may result in dehydration. It may result in water toxicity and electrolyte imbalance. Pupil dilation, blurred vision, and eyelid twitching, headaches, agitation, nausea, and anorexia, serotonergic axon apoptosis, resulting in thought and memory impairment, rapid and potentially dangerous heart rhythm problems, seizure activity, stroke, cardiovascular failure, and coma, malignant hyperthermia that can result in muscle damage, renal failure, and even blood coagulation. 20 to 60 minutes after ingesting MDMA and lasting for 3 to 4 more hours, the drug changes the feelings of the user. Feelings of happiness, clarity, peace, pleasure, altered sensory perceptions without depersonalization or detachment from the environment, non-sexual empathy for others, self-awareness, heightened self-esteem, open-mindedness, acceptance, and intimacy. MDMA's psychic effects are probably produced by its overstimulation of serotonergic producing neurons in the brain. MDMA forces a discharge of the reservoir of serotonin in the synaptic clefts. If more MDMA is taken when the effects begin to wear off, the response is a reduced reaction. Serotonin receptors may retreat into their cell membranes to avoid damage, and this is known as downregulation. It may take up to a week to regenerate enough serotonin to produce the same effect. So you can't take it day after day after day after day. Your body's going to reject it. You're going to have a downregulation of your serotonin receptor sites, and you're not going to get any reaction at all. After use, MDMA users may experience extreme depression and suicidal thoughts. Why? Because all your serotonin has the receptor sites have gone away, so you can't feel good anymore. Because of the downregulation of serotonin receptors, tolerance to the drug is fairly rapid. Is it harmless? Storm Chasers cast member Joel Taylor died of an MDMA overdose in 2018. Liam Payne from the singing group One Direction died in 2024 of a mixture of cocaine and MDMA. Harry Styles, that's One Direction. He was one of the group from One Direction. Leah Betts died in 1995 after taking MDMA and then consuming 7 liters of water at her 18th birthday party. She died of water toxicity. She drank too much water. She diluted herself out too much. You got to maintain a salty serum in your system. That's why they give you saline. When they give you an IV, it's got saline in it because that's what your blood's made out of, salty water. She drank too much water and she killed herself from water toxicity. Because of the questionable content of tablets said to be MDMA, polydrug use is quite common. LSD is taken with MDMA to increase the time the MDMA effects last. This is known as candy flipping, flip-flopping, XNLs, or candy snaps. MDMA with hydrocodone, OxyContin, codeine, heroin can enhance the euphoric feelings of both drugs. GHB, the date rape drug with MDMA, is a form of modern-day speedballing. Nitrous oxide and MDMA intensifies the inhalant rush. Prozac and MDMA are used together to buffer the serotonergic cells from toxicity. MDMA and Viagra are taken together to enhance sexuality and is referred to as sextasy. MDMA has been maintained because of its popularity with people who attend raves, dance parties, and electronic dance clubs. Rave and club music is also known as techno and maintains a trance-like beat that may be accompanied by light shows and laser light effects. These events are usually accompanied with the use of many illegal drugs that include MDMA, nitrous oxide, GHB, and GBL, the date rape drugs, dextromethorphan from cough syrup, ketamine, PCP, Nexus, and any street drugs other than alcohol, because alcohol works against MDMA. Problems at raves usually come from other drug use, alcohol, methamphetamines, LSD, GHB, or ketamine. MDMA effects that can cause problems are usually in the form of overheating, falling injuries, passing out, bad psychedelic experiences, and mental destabilization. Now remember, if you take any of these hallucinogens, the probability is, and you have a mental illness, the probability is it will make it worse. 2 drugs that are popular as rave drugs in the Netherlands are 2CT7 and 2CT2, also known as Blue Mystic, Tripstasy, Seventh Heaven, 7-Up, Lucky 7, and Beautiful. The drugs are psychostimulants and cause the following effects: induced delirium, heightened sensitivity, increased awareness, nausea and vomiting, dangerous cardiovascular responses. Nexus is the trade name for that, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It creates mild stimulation at low doses and intense psychedelic experiences at high doses. This is an amphetamine-like chemical, and it is very popular in the Netherlands. STP is the street name for 2,5-dimethoxy-4-methylamphetamine and is also known as DOM, D-O-M, serenity, tranquility, and peace. It is similar to MDA as it produces a 12-hour intoxication that results in intense stimulation, mild psychedelic reactions. It is notorious for producing bad trips. PMA, or 4-MA, is the street name for paramethoxyamphetamine. Its stimulant effects only last an hour and leaves the user with a sudden rise in blood pressure, distinct afterimages, pins and needles tingly feeling like a chill or a person's hair standing on end, seizures, hyperthermia, coagulation of blood, muscle damage. Yeah, let's all take it. Bromo dragonfly is also known as bee fly and fly. It is a powerful hallucinogen that has a longer duration than any of the other hallucinogens, sometimes lasting for days. It produces hallucinations, delusions, and memory loss. Let's all take it. Bromo dragonfly. Belladonna, this is anticholinergic drugs. Yeah, belladonna is a small plant found throughout the world that has been used for eons by women wanting to make their eyes more striking. It dilates your pupils. When your pupils dilate, if you if you are with somebody who you are attracted to, your eyes will dilate, and this is what women want to look like. They want it to look like they are attracted to someone. So if they make their eyes dilate, it looks like they're in love with whoever they're talking to. Belladonna is Italian for beautiful woman. Belladonna blocks acetylcholine receptors in the central nervous system to produce delirium, inability to focus the eyes, tachycardia, intense thirst, hyperthermia to the point of death, hallucinations, separation from reality, sleep for up to 48 hours. Jimson weed is a psychedelic plant found throughout the United States where its seeds are eaten, brewed into a tea, or the leaves are made into cigarettes, and is also known as thornapple, angel's trumpet, Jamestown weed, mad apple, moonflower, and stinkweed. The substance produces the following effects: jerky movements, tachycardia, that's your heart racing, hypotension, hallucinations of snakes, spiders, and lizards. So if you like snakes, spiders, and lizards, drink some Jimson weed. That's what it looks like, and you've got it. It's all over Arizona, and it's all around the reservation. And that's known as thornapple or Jimson weed. Ketamine is an anesthetic used with both humans and animals and is a close chemical relative to PCP, though ketamine is shorter lived than PCP. Ketamine was the most widely used anesthetic during the Vietnam War. It was liked because it does not affect the patient's breathing, but has the additional side effects of dissociation, feeling like you're outside yourself. One of the things that happens when somebody is, the first thing that you have to do after you come out of surgery is you have to cough. So since it didn't affect the breathing, this was really popular with the doctors in Vietnam because they didn't have to wait for the patient to. Most anesthetics affect your breathing, and this didn't. So they recovered from surgery a lot faster. The liquid is crystal, and you could get them out of recovery faster, especially if you've got a lot of casualties. You want to get them into recovery and get them out of recovery into a hospital bed as quickly as you possibly can. So ketamine was really popular. The liquid is crystallized and the crystals are smoked in a pipe or snorted to the effects of mild dreamlike intoxication, sensation of mind-body separation, dizziness, free-floating giddiness, slurred speech, impaired muscular coordination. This is what it looked like in Vietnam. That color of green was real popular. I had a set of scrubs from the Vietnam era, and they're that color. That's the Vietnam. Before that, they were white. Heavy doses of ketamine produce the psychedelic experience known as being in a K-hole, where the individual feels as if they are having an out-of-body near-death experience of depersonalization, hallucination, delirium, bizarre or mystical experiences. They can feel no pain, respiratory depression, increased heart rate and blood pressure, combative or belligerent behavior, convulsions, and rarely a coma. Phencyclidine hydrochloride, also known as PCP, was developed in the 1950s as a general anesthetic for humans. Unfortunately, the drug had toxic and hallucinogenic effects side effects, and it was relegated to use with animals only. It is also known as angel dust, peeps, KJ, Sherman's, or ozone. It is sometimes sprinkled on marijuana and smoked in a joint. It can be smoked, snorted, swallowed, or injected. PCP seems to disconnect sensory messages sent to the central nervous system, dissolving inhibitions, deadening pain, strange feeling of mind-body separation, forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, aggressive and violent behavior, depersonalization. 40% report hallucinations, both all tactile, visual, or auditory. Damage can be done by the individual to themselves by overstressing muscles, sinews, and flesh. Very common for them to break a bone and keep going, not knowing, not realizing that they're damaged, that they're hurt, because they can't feel anything. Low doses of PCP produce mild depression and then stimulation and last for 1 to 2 hours. Moderate doses of PCP produce an intense sensory deprived state and last for 4 to 6 hours. Heavy doses of PCP produce catatonia, coma, convulsions, and kidney failure and can last for up to 48 hours. The general drug using population does not routinely use PCP because of the high frequency of bad trips. Anterograde and retrograde amnesia is common with the use of PCP. Salvia divinorum is a member of the mint family and produces psychedelic effects when ingested. It creates dreamlike hallucinations, occasional delirium, and out-of-body sensations. When smoked, the effects last for only 7 to 10 minutes. The key ingredient is salvorin. At present, the drug is legal but under review for scheduling, and that's what it looks like. I got this stuff all over my yard. Pretty blue flower. That's a purple flower. It's really pretty, and it smells like mint, like spearmint. Amanita mushrooms have been used for rituals as far back as Neanderthal man. The mushroom causes dreamy intoxication, hallucinations, delirious excitement, physical toxic effects that can be deadly. The effects start 30 minutes after ingestion and last for 4 to 8 hours. Active ingredients resemble the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA. Too much of the mushroom will make the user sick as if they have food poisoning, and that's what it looks like, the Amanita mushroom. Dextromethorphan is the active ingredient in many cough syrups, including Robitussin DM, Coricidin, and Romolar. 10 to 15 times the recommended dose can give the user, they want you to take what, about, I don't know, a quarter of a cup. And these people are chug-a-lugging the whole bottle. That's how they get this stuff into their system. Causes euphoria, mind-body separation, auditory and visual hallucinations, loss of coordination, dilate pupils, decreased orgasm, nausea and upset stomach, itching, rashes, fever, tachycardia, acute anxiety, and panic reactions. And there they are, all the good stuff. Nutmeg and mace come from the nutmeg tree. In heavy doses, they can cause mild floating sensations to full-blown delirium. Such heavy doses do have their price. It gives you a bad hangover, and it severely upsets your stomach. This combination is rarely used outside of prisons where other psychedelics are unavailable. This is nutmeg, and this is mace. Mace is the protective layer around the nutmeg nut. This is the nut. That's it right there. And that's what it looks like, mace. Marijuana, cannabis, or hemp plants are used to make powerfully strong fibers for ropes, edible seeds, oil that can be used as a fuel or lubricant, medicinal substances. It is illegal in most countries around the world. Cannabis is a plant that was developed in China and spread throughout the world for its medicinal properties and powerful fibers. It is not native to North America. Cannabis appears in writings from ancient China and India. In India, it appears in the Vedas as a divine nectar. Cannabis is the form of hemp was brought to the United States before the Revolution to grow for the ships of the Royal Navy. George Washington worked to expand his holdings to grow more and more hemp for profit. Hemp wasn't used for its psychoactive effects until after World War I, when migrant workers from Mexico introduced smoking the wacky weed to other poor immigrant minority groups. The psychoactive properties of marijuana became popular during Prohibition, when the still legal pot was smoked for its psychoactive effects by those who sought a new high. In 1937, marijuana was declared illegal. Hemp was legally grown during World War II, and the government even experimented with cannabis extracts to produce a truth drug. It was transported all over the United States on the railroads. The seeds bounced out of the train cars and got into the ditches, and that's where the ditchweed comes from. If you've never seen ditchweed, it grows all over the place along the railroad tracks in Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas. It's all over the place. It's hemp plants. I've got some in my backyard, but it's ditchweed is what it is, and it stinks. Oh man, does it stink! Hemp is legally grown, and when I find it, I just yank the stuff out because it smells terrible. Hemp is legally grown in France, Italy, and the Yugoslavian countries. That's Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, Slovenia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, England, and Canada to make paper, textiles, and rope. Marijuana is legally used in the Netherlands in coffee shops. 160 million people worldwide use some form of marijuana, probably higher today since it has been legalized in the United States, in a majority of the states. Going into the 1960s, only 2% of the people in the United States had tried an illegal drug. However, the counterculture movements in the United States that grew out of the civil rights and anti-war movements of the Vietnam era increased drug experimentation exponentially. By 1979, 68 million Americans had tried marijuana and 23 million used it on a monthly basis. Attempted control of the substance waxed and waned over the years, but a resurgence of marijuana prohibition in the 1990s led to a marked drop in its usage. By 1992, just over 7 million people reported using marijuana on a monthly basis. By 2005, the number of monthly marijuana users doubled. In 2005, 3,200,000 people used marijuana on a daily basis. Every year, 80,000 emergency room visits occur because of marijuana usage. 44% of the male adult arrestees test positive for marijuana. 32% of female adult arrestees test positive for marijuana. 57% of juvenile male arrestees test positive for marijuana. 32% of juvenile female arrestees test positive for marijuana. A plant grown to make fiber is low in psychoactive substances and is referred to as hemp. And this is hemp. On the left, on the right is marijuana. The plant grown to produce psychoactive resins are referred to as marijuana and are low in fibrous structure. So this is what ditchweed looks like, and that's what marijuana looks like. And even the leaves are different. This is marijuana. It's got a big head on it. This is hemp. It's just tall and fibrous. Street names for marijuana include Pot Muggles, 420, Mary Jane, Griffa, Bud, Herb, Chronic, Dank, Grass, Leaf, Ganja, Charas, Sins, Weed, Dope, Dubage, Dekind. Different types of marijuana are African Black, Panama Red, Acapulco Gold, Maui Wowie, Humboldt Green, BC Bud, BC standing for British Columbia, and Buddha Thai. And of these, this is the strongest, Buddha Thai. Marijuana comes in 3 distinct species, but hundreds of hybrids. Cannabis sativa is the most common species grown in tropical, subtropical, and temperate regions. It grows 5 to 20 feet tall. 5 to 20 feet tall. A plant grows from 1 to 5 pounds of buds and smokable leaves. Cannabis sativa is both marijuana and the hemp plant. That's why it grows so tall. The marijuana plants don't grow that tall. Cannabis indica grows in Southeast Asia. It's shorter and bushier plant and is generally stronger smelling. It usually is grown to produce hashish. Cannabis ruderalis is a thin, small plant and has very little THC and is rarely grown for anything. Most marijuana is grown using the Sinsemilla growing system, where male and female plants are separated before pollination can occur. By removing the plants before pollination can take place, the plants produce no seeds and the THC is stronger. This method is used with both the cannabis sativa and the indica plants. That's how you get the strong THC. Dried marijuana leaves, buds, and flowers are crushed and rolled into cigarettes known as joints. Marijuana can be smoked in pipes. In India, marijuana is divided into 3 different strengths, depending on the part of the plant that is smoked. Bhang has the lowest potency and uses the stems and leaves. Ganja is stronger and is from the stronger leaves and flowering tops. Charas is the concentrated resin and is the most potent. And that's what Bhang looks like. That's what ganja looks like. And charas looks like rat turds. Anyway. Depending on the region of the country, only 10 to 50% of marijuana consumed in the United States is homegrown. Most of the marijuana in Arizona probably comes up from Mexico, I would guess. Most of the marijuana being smoked is smuggled in from Mexico and is either grown in Mexico or Colombia. In the United States, inventive growers have gone to more and more creative ways of producing their product, from growing fields of the plant in the wilderness-backed areas of national forests to growing plants in grow houses using grow lights and hydroponics. The typical marijuana plant, and despite the fact that majority of the states have legalized marijuana, you still can't grow it. That's the bizarre part. You can't legally grow it. The typical, unless you are, you can only grow it for medicinal purposes. You can't grow it for, it has to be taxed. That's one of the reasons why they legalized it, so they could tax it. So they don't want just anybody growing a marijuana plant and then selling. You get 1 to 5 pounds of this stuff. So you could sell it, but they don't want you to do that. They want to tax it. The typical marijuana plant contains over 420 chemicals. 30 of them have been found to be psychoactive. The most potent chemical is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. When ingested, the psychoactive chemicals in the marijuana are converted by the liver into 60 other metabolites, some of which are psychoactive as well. Only about 20% of the THC in the joint is retained by the body, but the longer the smoke is held in the lungs, the more THC that is absorbed, and the stronger the high. Modern marijuana contains as much as 4 to 25% THC as compared to the 60s average of 1 to 3%. Most of the research from the past is based on the weaker marijuana, and this is one of the problems with the research that we're seeing. Anything before the 1990s, you were probably talking about this stuff. And today it's this stuff. Much to researchers' surprise, marijuana has its own receptors in the brain, or at least that's what researchers thought when they discovered new receptors in the brain when doing marijuana research in the 1990s. Hence the name endogenous cannabinoid neurotransmitters, or CBs. The first endogenous neurotransmitter that was found to occupy the cannabinoid receptors was anandamide. CB1 receptors are found mostly in the brain, the hippocampus, the amygdala, basal ganglia, including the nucleus accumbens, and the cerebellum. That's movement, memory, excitation, and your reactions. There you go. That takes them all in. CB2 receptors are found mostly in the immune system and lower body. Now, this gets to be a problem The more marijuana that you smoke, the more you're affecting your immune system. CB1 receptors are in areas that's one of the reasons why people who smoke a lot of pot catch a lot of colds. Anything that comes down the pipe, any respiratory illness, they will contract. And it's because it affects their immune system. CB1 receptors are in areas that integrate sensory experiences with emotions, controls learning, controls memory, controls a sense of novelty, controls motor coordination. Opioids and cocaine overdoses are dangerous because they suppress the heart rate and respiratory functions of the brainstem. At the same time, it is almost impossible to overdose with marijuana because the anandamide receptors that it utilizes merely increase or decrease our minds to sensory inputs. Marijuana is a vasodilator and so causes bloodshot eyes when it is used. It often leads to conjunctivitis. It also causes physical relaxation or sedation. It has some pain control, coughing from lung irritation, an increase in appetite, small to moderate loss of muscle coordination. I've been talking all day. This is the third time I've tried to get through this thing. First time I actually got through it, but it didn't record. Increased heart rate, it was my fault. I didn't have enough memory, and it erased the whole thing. Decreased blood pressure, decreased eye pressure, decreased nausea, decreased ability to track movement, and afterimage of a moving object. Marijuana causes a small temporary disruption of the male hormone testosterone. While this is of little importance to most males, for those with a hormone imbalance or those going through puberty, it can cause some problems. The testosterone decreases can also cause a lowered sperm count and sperm motility in chronic pot users, making it less likely that they will be able to reproduce. Marijuana makes people hungry, called the munchies. When THC occupies the CB1 receptors in the hypothalamus, that indicates satiation. Marijuana doesn't sharpen an individual's sense of taste. As a matter of fact, they'll eat anything. Marijuana also gives the individual a feeling of confusion about where they are and eventually makes them feel deja vu, along with drowsy, aloof, and difficulty concentrating. With the advent of marijuana high in THC, these varieties have more extreme effects. Giddiness, increased alertness to the point of hypervigilance, major distortions of time, major distortions of color, major distortions of sound, sensation of movement under the user's feet, visual illusions, hallucinations, paranoia, and depersonalization. Marijuana users tend to act more empathic to others' feelings when under the influence of the drug. Marijuana also makes the user more suggestible. The main organ in the brain that is affected by marijuana is the amygdala, which regulates appetite, pain, anxiety, fear, suppression of painful memories, and sense of novelty. When an individual uses marijuana, the THC artificially stimulates the amygdala, making even the most mundane objects and ideas interesting. If the individual overstimulates the CB1 receptors, these cells will downregulate, sometimes reducing these receptors to 70%. When the individual isn't stoned, this reduction of CB1 receptors will result in the loss of novelty. Even the most novel stimuli will be boring to them. Even video games that they play obsessively while stoned, they will find boring. For a marijuana smoker to continue working, studying, or even maintaining a relationship when not stoned takes a great deal of desire. Thus, the individual will be more likely to continue to use to combat the perpetual boredom they experience when they aren't stoned. Receptor recovery can take from 2 weeks for moderate smokers up to 6 weeks or longer for heavy smokers. Short-term memory is held in the hippocampus for immediate use. If this information is needed, it will be held until it can be transferred to the long-term memory. Anandamide receptors in the hippocampus dictate how much memory is available for immediate use. Because THC occupies anandamide receptor sites, it limits the amount of hippocampal short-term memory. The user may lose significant chunks of their lives while using because of the memory impairment caused by THC. Marijuana slows learning and disrupts short-term memory, but doesn't affect long-term memory, though it does disrupt memory in general, attention span, cognitive functioning. Oddly, users may feel that they are thinking deeper. They're not. When the brain is developing, there is an explosion of the connections and synapses among the nerve cells in the frontal lobes around age 12. A great deal of pruning of these connections and synapses will take place through the next 10 to 12 years. Depending on the use, unused connections will be broken and discarded. Heavy marijuana usage during this time frame will change the brain structure. Because of the distorting effects of marijuana, the individual may develop an impaired ability to determine danger, to organize, and to prioritize. Marijuana and MDMA use is especially destructive for memory. Marijuana tends to give their user a distorted sense of time. This is known as temporal disintegration. While this effect may help with dull, repetitive jobs, for more complex jobs like studying, the individual may become easily bored and quit. Temporal disintegration is part of the most debilitating aspects of using marijuana, along with impaired judgment and short-term memory loss. Multiple and interactive tasks can be impossible for these individuals. Distortion of time, impaired judgment, and short-term memory loss will be evident in individuals' behavior for up to 7 days after use. By 28 days, the individual has returned to what passes for normal with them. Research into the effects of smoking marijuana on the respiratory system indicates that smoking 4 or 5 joints is as destructive on the mucous membranes in the lungs as smoking a pack of cigarettes. This is because marijuana isn't regulated as to its growth and refinement and is rarely filtered. Chronic use of marijuana can lead to chronic coughing and bronchitis. The most damage is done to those individuals who smoke both marijuana and cigarettes. Marijuana smokers have increased mucus-secreting epithelial cells, but decreased cilia to expel the excess mucus. For those who smoke both cigarettes and joints, they lose all the cilia on their mucous membranes, meaning that they will have to cough to expel the mucus. While researchers have found that there is no link between marijuana and lung cancer, they have also discovered that marijuana suppresses the anti-tumor immune response, leading to a greater probability of developing tumors, including breast tumors. Marijuana has also been found to increase replication of HIV, accelerating its progress. Because of its capacity to suppress the immune system, users tend to be more susceptible to colds, flu, and other viral infections. The immune compromised are not advised to use marijuana. Marijuana routinely increases select mental problems, paranoia, anxiety, and depression. If a person is on the edge, the confusion and depersonalization of THC will very often tip the scales in a negative direction. Individuals who maintain a paranoid mindset while smoking marijuana might have exacerbated reactions with stronger blends or other drug mixtures. Tolerance to marijuana occurs very rapidly. Often new smokers will experience inverse tolerance, where they actually become more sensitive to the marijuana and have heightened sensations with less smoking. Marijuana's effects last for from 4 to 6 hours, but the substance may be detectable for up to 28 days and actually will stay in the body for up to 3 months. Because it's fat soluble, so it gets into your fat. Because of the length of time it takes to rid the body of the substance, withdrawal from marijuana doesn't start until a longer period after abstinence. Research has disclosed that despite the rumor to the contrary, marijuana smokers do go through withdrawals, though they are more delayed than any other drugs, and like other drugs, not everyone will go through all the withdrawal symptoms. Everyone will have craving. Other symptoms include anger, irritability, anxiety, and/or aggression, aches, pains, and chills, depression, inability to concentrate, slight tremors, sleep disturbances, decreased appetite and stomach pain, and sweating. Unlike most other drugs, marijuana has a stronger psychological addiction than physical addiction. Marijuana has just as strong chronic and compulsive use as any other drug. Unfortunately, marijuana's reputation is that it is non-addicting, leading people into illegal usage and destructive circumstances with the idea that because it is less addictive, the behavior is all right. Adolescents are very sensitive to peer pressure. People who smoke marijuana tend to hang around other people who smoke marijuana. Because this crowd has a very rebellious nature than, say, the chess club, drugs tended to be around for the cool people to try. In this way, tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana are gateway drugs to heavier drug use. People who develop a pattern of use at an early age restructure brain cells toward continued addictive use. Tolerance to less serious drugs may lead to a desire to refine that high. Researchers have found that almost everyone in treatment programs have started with the big three. Marijuana use by 17 gives a 2.7 to 5.2 greater chance of heavier use. And the big three, of course, are alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Marijuana is the most widely used illicit drug in the world and is the drug of choice in many countries. That includes Australia, Canada, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, Panama, and South Africa. In the United States, penalties for possession and use vary from state to state. In 2004, 44.2% of the arrests for drugs were for marijuana. Of course, all of this has changed because they've legalized it in most places. Other countries punished for marijuana: Austria, Belgium, Germany, Greece, Ireland, Italy, and Spain don't prosecute for small amounts for personal use as long as you aren't selling it, then you're okay. In England, possession of marijuana could lead to a 5-year prison term, though most sentences are minimal. In the Netherlands, marijuana use is limited to the coffee shops. Sales outside this system are illegal. Some countries have the death penalty for the possession of hard drugs. Most of them are Muslim countries: Algeria, Indonesia, Iran, Malaysia, Singapore, Turkey, and Thailand. And most of those are, like I said, were Muslim countries. Other countries punish for marijuana. In Japan, possession is illegal and people can go to jail for having less than an ounce of marijuana. Smugglers with larger amounts of marijuana would routinely be imprisoned for 3 to 4 years. Foreigners who are caught are deported after they serve out their sentences. These individuals will often be banned from re-entering Japan for life. Paul McCartney has a lifetime ban from an incident in 1980. In India, an individual can be imprisoned for up to 10 years for smoking marijuana. Venezuela has a minimum 10-year prison sentence. Or did, now that we've taken it over. But who knows what's going to happen. People caught for reckless driving are after an accident are frequently not only tested for alcohol, but other drugs as well. In the case of marijuana, there are some circumstances that make the information erroneous. Marijuana stays in the system for weeks after it stops having a psychedelic effect on the individual. Elimination rates often vary by individual because of fat content. There is little accurate data about how much marijuana in the system causes impairment. Actually, there is data up to this point. In the old days, we used to test urine. Now we're testing blood. And the THC level in the blood is a little bit different than what we found in the urine. There's often another drug in the system at the same time, especially alcohol. While the research is fairly concrete when dealing with alcohol and impairment, for marijuana it's not so simple. Statistics dealing with marijuana and traffic problems often involve polydrug use. 65% of heavy drinkers also use marijuana. People who drive under the influence of marijuana often are paranoid and drive too slowly for traffic. Research shows impaired driving for marijuana smokers up to 8 hours after smoking. And 60% failed 2.5 hours after smoking a moderate amount. A French study showed marijuana as a factor in 10% of traffic accidents. A U.S. Study showed marijuana as a factor in 4 to 14% of injury or fatal accidents. Most drug urine tests place the cutoff for marijuana use at 50 nanograms per milliliter. However, for blood marijuana use, it's 5 nanograms per milliliter. Tiger Woods just rolled his car in Florida, and one of the reasons that he got arrested is because he would not allow them to draw his blood. Why not? Because he was probably stoned at the time. For long-term smokers of marijuana, this amount of drug could be found in their systems as long as 3 weeks after the last use. This is in their urine, of course. So that's not only detecting what's in your blood, what is active in your blood, but it's also what's in your fat cells. It would take a total of 6 weeks for a heavy smoker to test completely negative. The first time or infrequent users should be able to test negative in about 24 to 48 hours after use. The Olympic Committee sets a cutoff at 15 nanograms per milliliter. Once again, this is a urine test. If we take a blood test, it's completely different. Yeah. And I have the figures here. In Colorado, Montana, and Washington, if they draw your blood, and it's 5 nanograms per mil, that means that you're intoxicated. It's 2 nanograms in Nevada and Ohio, and it's 1 nanogram in Pennsylvania. There are some states that have 0 tolerance for marijuana. Arizona, Delaware, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Montana, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, and Utah have a zero tolerance. And that's one of the reasons why if you have your blood drawn and they find it, then they know it's circulating in your blood. They don't do urine tests. They do blood tests now. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is recurrent nausea, vomiting, and cramping abdominal pain that can occur due to cannabis use. CHS is associated with frequent, weekly or more often, long-term, several months or longer, cannabis use. Synthetic cannabinoids can also cause CHS. Diagnosis is based on symptoms, a history of cannabis use, especially persistent, frequent use of high-dose cannabis products, and ruling out other possible causes of hyperemesis. Hyperemesis is persistent vomiting. We've had 8 deaths from CHS in the United States in the last year. Marijuana and its extracts have been used medicinally since the beginning of recorded history as a muscle relaxant, as an analgesic or painkiller, as an appetite stimulant to control spasms and convulsions, to calm anxiety, to treat asthma, to treat jaundice, beriberi, and ague, to stimulate childbirth, to relieve coughs, to treat withdrawal from opiates and alcohol, as an antibiotic. Modern medicine uses marijuana or its derivatives to treat glaucoma, nausea and pain, to subdue uncontrolled movements, multiple sclerosis, to stimulate weight gain for wasting illnesses such as cancer and AIDS. Unfortunately, abuses of the system have led to limitations on acceptance of marijuana for medicinal purposes. Marijuana and its derivatives contain THC, have been incorporated into select pharmaceuticals. Dronabinol or Marinol and Sesamet are medications containing THC that can be given to individuals for nausea and pain control. Sativex is a spray that is used as an inhaler by people suffering from MS, multiple sclerosis, to aid with movement coordination. These medications are merely maintenance drugs. Some patients have complained that the drugs give them the feeling that they're getting better when they are actually staying the same or getting worse. If the patient has a history of addiction, the medications can lead to a relapse. The National Drug Control Policy Commission researched the use of marijuana as a medication and came up with the following conclusions. Cannabinoids have a natural role in pain modulation, control of movement, and memory. THC has potential therapeutic value for pain relief, control of nausea and vomiting, and as an appetite stimulant. Smoking marijuana is a crude method of delivery of THC and also delivers potentially harmful substances. The psychological effects of cannabinoids include anxiety reduction, sedation, and euphoria, and can be therapeutic. Marijuana smoking is a serious risk factor for the development of respiratory diseases. And that is it. Let me see if I can get out of here. There you go. Okay. Okay, well, next week we'll tackle the nootropics. So I'll see you next week.